Good afternoon. This is John coming to you from your Spokane Woodcraft store. And this afternoon, we're going to talk a little bit about resin casting. We have some new products in the store that we're going to be sharing with you. And I think that you're going to find some really interesting and fun product here. We've got our new California Air Tools pressure pot. We've got our Alumilite casting resin. Mold release agents, new molds, the new silicone rubber molds. These things are really cool. I think you guys are going to love these molds. And so we have several things that we're going to show you. We're going to talk about how you figure out how much resin you need for a particular mold size. So stick with me here for a little bit, and I think we'll have some fun with this. Okay, so here we go. First of all, let's talk about the mold. Now these molds are made from silicone rubber, so they're flexible, they're nice and heavy duty. You can see how thick the sidewalls are. You can see they'll flex, they'll open up to help release your actual casting. These things are really, really nice. We have them in a size that you can make either bottle stopper blanks or handles for things like I don't know, ice cream scoops, pizza cutters, that kind of thing. Anything that you want to make a handle for. This is probably big enough. This is 6 inches by 2 by 2. So that's going to make a nice sized blank. We also have individual sized pen blanks, or pen blank molds, I guess I should say. This is 1 inch by 1 inch by 6. That's a nice oversized pen blank. And then if you don't mind me turning around to the counter back here, I'll show you some of the other products that we have. For those of you that are into knife making, how about Alumilite knife scales? Really nice. I'm looking forward to doing some of these myself for some of my knives at home. Ring blanks. How many of you have started turning our ring kits? Now you can make your own custom designed ring blank right here, specially sized just for that. These are 1/2 inch deep by 1.5 inches square. Nice little molds. This is really interesting. What these do is they actually insert, and I'm sorry I'm doing this with it in the package. I just want to make sure I have plenty of these for you guys to come in and buy. So what this does, Joel's laughing at me back here. So what this does is it just cuts your mold in half, and now instead of a whole handle, you could make just a bottle stopper if you wanted to. Of course, cast the whole thing, cut it in half, and now you can make 2 bottle stoppers. But it's nice to have the option. If all you want to do is make one, you can certainly do that now. You could cast one color on one side of it and cast a different color on the other side if you wanted to, and make your 2 bottle stopper blanks. So that's kind of a neat thing there. Excuse me. We also have, and I was really excited to see these when they came in. These are to let you do casting around a pen tube. So these are the same kind of things. They come in 2 different sizes, one from a 6.5 millimeter up to 8.5. So this is going to do your slim lines, Tony Twist. Joel, what am I missing there? And then in this one, you have 8.5 up to 13 millimeter. So now you're into your Wall Streets, cigar pins, that kind of thing. And you just simply, just like with your bottle stopper, you put it into your mold, you put your tube over one of them, put the other one in on the other end, and put it into the tube. And now you've got your tube suspended, because these don't go all the way to the bottom. So your tube is suspended inside the mold blank, and it's capped so that the resin doesn't seep into your actual tube. And you can cast your tube then in your acrylic material. Perhaps you've, I don't know, put some kind of water slide decals around the tubes, or you've done, some hand painting on the tube and you want to cast it in a clear acrylic. You have a lot of different options to do that. simply by using those, we'll call them dams for lack of a better word, with the plugs on them, so you can cast that tube in the acrylic of your choice, whether it be a clear or colors or what have you. So you've got some really good options with this stuff. Again, nice heavy duty silicone rubber, obviously reusable many, many times. You'll probably never wear these things out. A couple of things to keep in mind about the silicone rubber. It is nice, although my experience so far with these has been that they will come out without the mold release agent. The actual blank will come out, but this will help to condition the inside of the mold and keep it easy to remove that blank once it has cured. So I do recommend the use of mold release agent, and you'll see us use that in the casting that we're going to do today. Stir sticks. We've got stir sticks available here at the store. They're they're tongue depressors, popsicle sticks, whatever you want to call them. These are a nice size. They're going to be easy to use. They're long enough to get down into the bottom of a cup. So that's what we're going to show you today. Today we're going to show you, we're going to do a 2-color pour today. We will be using a red pearl, which will have some shimmery effect to it, and we're going to combine that with sky blue. So this should make a fairly pretty handle, I hope anyway. I guess we'll see when we're able to demold it tomorrow, and maybe we'll bring you a video of it being demolded, or maybe you'll just have to come by the store and take a look at it in person, because we'll put these blanks out on the display out there. That would actually be preferable. Just come on into the store and take a look at the blanks that we're doing today. All right, so the product that we're going to cast is the Alumilite Clear Slow. Now this has a 12-minute working time, and that time starts to run as soon as you combine the A part with the B part. Did I point to the right ones? I had it backwards. When you combine the A part with the B part, that's when your time starts to run, okay? So if you're doing colored pours like we're going to do today, we're going to decant the material into 2 different cups that are labeled A, so that I don't get them screwed up. Boy, I tell you what, I've done that before and not been able to figure out why my blank never cured, and it's because I ended up combining the wrong, I put B with B and A with A, and it got ugly. So now I learned my lesson. I label my cups so that I can make sure that I'm combining A and B in the right proportions. It is fairly important that you use the right proportions when you're blending this material, so stick with that. And we're going to talk about how do I figure out how much resin to use for this particular blank. Well, it's all based on the cubic inches of volume in the mold. For instance, in the single pen blank, this takes just over 3 ounces, 3.3 ounces of material to fill this up. The larger mold that we have here, this is 24 cubic inches, and that's simply the length of the mold times the width times the depth. So 6 times 2 times 2 is 24, so 24 cubic inches times 0.554 ounces of resin per cubic inch. So for this whole mold, it's going to take 13.3 ounces of material. Now, if you were doing half of it, it would take 6.65. Now, how do I know those numbers? Because I cheated and wrote them on the bottom of the mold. So that when I'm looking at it, I can just glance down and say, oh, 13.3 ounces. Actually, don't call it cheating. Just say, well, you know, it's reference material. That's what it is. It's just reference material. Joel's making faces at me over on the other side of the camera there, but you know what? That's okay. So on my cheat sheet here, I have calculated out it takes 13.3 ounces. So essentially, I want 3.3 ounces in each of these cups. Now, how did I figure that out? Because I divided 13.3 by 4. Because I have 4 cups, all right, 2A, 2B, because we're going to do 2 different colors, all right? And so my total resin is 13.3, so I have to divide that by 4. If I was doing 3 colors, I would divide it by 6, and so forth. It all depends on how many colors you want to do. That will determine your total resin for each side. So in this particular case, again, we want 3.3 ounces of resin in each of these 4 cups. Now, Alumilite is combined by weight. It is not by volume. It's by weight. The 2 different sides of the resin weigh different amounts. And so we use a little scale that you can buy here at Woodcraft, or you can use any kind of a kitchen scale, a postal scale. You know, you want something that's going to be fairly accurate. I would recommend a digital scale as opposed to one with an analog dial on it, because a digital scale is going to be a little more accurate. And again, it is fairly important that you have these parts in the right proportion. So a digital scale is what I would recommend. All right, so Joel, have I missed anything that we need to cover before we actually start mixing and pouring? And have I got it?
Nope, you got it.
All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start by spraying the inside of my mold. And this is the Stoner mold release. Don't get misled by the name. As soon as I said it, Joel started chuckling at me. Or maybe you should be misled by No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. All right, so we're going to turn the scale on. I'm going to take my A cup. Now, it's real important that you have a scale that has what they call a tare feature, T-A-R-E. And that just simply lets me set the cup on there, hit the tare button, and now we're back to 0. So we're going to take A to put in the A cup, and I want 3.3 ounces. So we're just going to watch our scale here. Isn't this exciting, watching me do this? Not really, but this is how it works. So I'm going a little bit at a time here because I don't want to get too much. There's 3, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. Holy moly, I did it. All right, so we're going to set that one down. We're going to grab the other cup that's labeled A. And again, we've already hit the tare button, so we know that we're at 0. As long as your scale doesn't shut back off, your tare should stay in place. I don't know where they came up with that term. All right, 2.2. 2.4, 5, 6, 8. Again, just a little bit at a time. You want to try to get these right at the right amount. 3.3. All right, so that's our A side. Joel, can you guess what I'm going to do with these?
I think you're going to put color in them. You're going to measure that first.
I'm going to measure these out first, yes. And how much am I going to put in each cup?
3.3.
Oh, you've been paying attention.
Safety first.
Safety first. You know, one thing that I will mention is that there's really no smell to this stuff. I mean, you would think Oh, look at that, 3.3. There's really no smell to it. So you don't need fancy respirators or anything like that because there's really no fumes to it at all. Those of you that are pin turners already will appreciate this. This doesn't smell any worse. In fact, it may not even smell as bad as regular epoxy adhesive. So if you're using epoxy to, say, glue your tubes into your blanks, it doesn't even smell that bad. So there's very little smell to it, very little odor. So if you're working in the basement of your house or something, you're not going to stink the whole place up. So that's kind of a nice feature of the product too. All right, we're sneaking up on that 3.3 ounces here. There it is, 3.3. Holy moly, folks, we did it. All 4 cups have 3.3 ounces in them. I'm not really sure just how I managed to do that, but there you go. We'll turn our scale off, set that out of the way. All right. So I like to mix my color into the A side. Again, remember, my chemical reaction doesn't begin until I mix the A with the B. And so if we add the color first, that way we can get the color well stirred in, well blended into our resin before our time starts to run. Now, with a 2-color pour, this is pretty simple. It doesn't take an awful lot of time to get 2 colors blended. If we were trying to do 4 colors, for instance, it would be even more important that you do this a small amount at a time. And what I like to do is just take my stir stick and just, let's put a little bit more in there, Joel, just for the proverbial you know what. Close our packet up, and we'll begin to mix this in. Now, you'll see a lot of things out there on the internet and in videos on YouTube and so on and so forth that talk about mixing and air bubbles and so on and so forth till the cows come home, all right? When you are using a pressure pot like we are, what that positive pressure does is any air bubbles that do appear will basically be crushed down to a size that's small enough that you really can't see it with the human eye. So whether there may be some air bubbles inside your casting, but they're probably going to be too small for you to really see. Now, does that mean that you should just go crazy willy-nilly stirring up your resin? No, not really. You still want to be careful blending it. You don't want to introduce any more air to it than what you absolutely have to. So you want to be somewhat careful. But you don't need to be too awful concerned about it, I guess would be the right word. Alumilite will cure just in the open air. So you don't have to absolutely pressurize it if you don't want to, or if you don't have a pressure pot, or whatever the case may be. You don't absolutely have to. In that kind of a situation, you're going to want to blend this very, very slowly, very gently. And if you do see some air bubbles begin to form, kind of shift them off to the side of the cup or whatever it is you're using to blend them in, and kind of release those air bubbles as you see them begin to form. And you can eliminate a lot of them that way. But when you're using a pressure pot like we are today, it's really not quite as important that you eliminate every single air bubble. Now, as you see, I'm taking a fair amount of time to blend this blue color in, and I'll kind of hold it up, give you a, can you see that, Joel? Is it showing up okay?
Let's go ahead and zoom in.
Zoom in on that color a little bit. It's a really nice blue, I think. But then I'm kind of a fan of blue. So, all right. So that seems to be blended in pretty well. So I'm going to set that A side off to the side for a minute here. And I'm going to take the other A side. Again, see why it's important to label these? Sorry, I'm getting the signal. I'm holding it way too high out of the camera range. So that's why it's important to label these cups. At least it is for me. So now we're going to go with this red. And I haven't used this red yet, so I have no idea. You know, you look at the, I'm holding it too high again, aren't I, Joel? You look at the powder here, and it sure doesn't look red. But they call this red pearl. So this ought to have a little bit of shimmer to it. Ooh, yeah. I see some red starting to form in there, Joel. And you know what? Just for good measure, I'm going to add, even though I'm going to have glitter all over my hands, I'm going to add some of this diamond dust. Just a little bit. Don't need an awful lot. But that'll add just a little bit more pizzazz to it. We all like pizzazz, right? Ooh, that puts me in the mind of pizza. Maybe I'll get pizza for dinner tonight. What do you think, Joel?
Yeah,
Pizzazz pizza? Yeah. Yeah. As you can tell, we tend to get a little off track sometimes during these videos, especially when we're not going out live over Facebook. All right. So, you know, I got to tell you, folks, I'm not seeing a whole lot of red in here. So maybe I'll add a little bit more of this powder to it. Well, I tell you, I wish you could see Joel behind the camera over here. He's just wandering around back there. He's just laughing and giggling at me. I don't know. But you know, might as well have fun while we're trying to learn something, right? I kind of take the attitude, look, if you can't have fun during the day, don't get out of bed and bring the rest of us down, right? Can I get an amen on that? Joel? Amen. There we go.
And I have a witness.
All right. You know, I think we need some more red. It doesn't look very red, does it, Joel? Red pearl. This is another nice thing about doing it in one side or the other, because you have all the time that you need to blend your colors in without having to worry about that chemical reaction taking place. Make sure to scrape the sides of your mixing cups. Well, apparently the red pearl isn't supposed to really be red, Joel, because that didn't really, I mean, it has a reddish tint to it, but it's not going to come out bright red.
Perhaps it needs a chemical reaction, a hardening agent to bring out the red.
I don't know. You know, I don't think so, but maybe. We'll find out. We'll find out. It is kind of pretty. I'll give it that. What do you think? Not real bright red. But you know what? It is what it is. All right. So I think we have that blended in nicely. Now, one thing that you can do to help ensure that you don't add bubbles to it when you add the part B to the part A is to pull your stir stick up a little bit like so, hold it at an angle, create a little bit of a nozzle in your cup, pour it on the stir stick and let it run down into the other side. So now my 12 minutes is beginning to run. All right, so Joel, have you got a watch on there? Clock on the wall. You know, it occurs to me, standing here doing this, that perhaps one thing you might want to have in your casting shop at home is some kind of maybe a little kitchen timer or a countdown clock of some kind. Maybe your telephone has a stopwatch app on it, or maybe your wristwatch has a stopwatch on it. But my 12 minutes has now begun to run. And if you think about it, 12 minutes is really, it's a fairly long time. Even when especially when you're just doing two colors like we are today. So we want to make sure that the A side is well mixed with the B side. You'll notice that I'm going side to side every so often, and I'm keeping the stir stick on the bottom of the cup. That will help to prevent the introduction of air bubbles as well. Just keep that stir stick down on the bottom. Again, go around the sides of the cup every so often. Make sure that nothing's sticking to the side. And again, 12 minutes is a fairly long time, but we do want to make sure that this gets well blended. I really like this blue color. This is a very pretty blue. This is called sky blue, and I think the powders come in 2 or 3 different blues. Some of these powdered dyes from Alumilite, some of the colors are just really pretty. There's a purple out there that I like. And a couple of greens too. There's a forest green that's really cool looking. Maybe one of these days I'll snag one of those and we'll pour a forest green and a purple or a white or heck, maybe we'll get adventurous and do a 3-color or a 4-color pour. All right, so we have the other B side here. And again, we're just going to pour it right onto that stir stick and just let it run right down into the A part. And then I want to make sure to scrape the inside of the cup. I don't want to leave, much, if any, of the B side in here. Because again, the proportions of the material are fairly important. And now we just begin the process of blending this A and B together. This really doesn't look very red. Maybe it'll turn out to surprise us though, because I can't see the diamond dust in it. I can see the kind of sparkle to it. I can see the pearlescence in the material. So it may surprise us and actually be prettier than what we think it's going to be. I was hoping for a little brighter red, a little more red, I guess. But we'll take it as it is. And when you're doing this, it's always kind of an experiment. It really is. It's always kind of an experiment as to what you're going to end up with when it comes out of the mold. And that's part of the fun of it. For those of you that are pin turners or you turners out there that make ice cream scoops or pizza cutters, things like that you make your own handles for, those things are already individual pieces, okay? You can take a piece of wood and make a handle for an ice cream scoop, and there will never, ever, ever be another one just like it, because each piece of wood is going to be different. Doing this simply elevates that creativity to the next level, because now you're in complete control of what this handle blank is going to look like, or that pin blank, or that bottle stopper blank, or whatever the case may be. You're going to be in complete control of that. So you've just elevated your craft to the next level.
We're at 5 minutes.
5 minutes. So you can see on a 2-color pour like this, a 12-minute open time is plenty of time. Now I'm going back to the first one that we started, blending, and I can report that I can feel a little bit of warmth starting to be generated by this. These materials are what they call exothermic. So as they cure, as the chemical reaction begins, they give off heat. And it is that heat that helps the material to cure. So that's what we're feeling in this first cup, that chemical reaction is happening. It's not hot to the touch. I think these usually get up to somewhere between, I want to say, 180 to 200 degrees, I think. So they do get pretty warm. So you want to be careful when you're working with this. Pardon me, I am so sorry. If you have children that are interested in doing this, you'd probably want to supervise them pretty closely so that they don't burn themselves or even hurt themselves, or think that it looks like a soda pop and try to drink it, or anything like that. You'd want to keep a close eye on that kind of thing. Okay. We're going to make sure these are well blended. And I actually want to let them kind of begin to get a little on the thick side. Right now, you can see they're still fairly thin. If we let them begin to get a little thicker, or let them begin to cure just a little bit, when we go to actually blend these, we don't end up just mixing them. We can actually then kind of swirl the colors a little bit so that we get a nice effect there, rather than just stirring 2 colors together. How are we looking on the time there, Joel? About 7 minutes now?
Yep.
All right. So my open time, we have just a few minutes left on the open time. And so what we're going to do, we're going to give one final little stir here. And then we're going to begin actually pouring these two together. Because not only do we have to still put them into the mold and kind of blend it or swirl it a little bit, we want to have time to get them into our pressure pot as well. So we're down to about 5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes by now. That should still be enough time to let us do what it is we need to do here. So here we go. We'll start with a little bit of blue. Just kind of pour some in. Let it find its own level. And we'll pour a little of the, I was going to say white, but we'll pour a little of the red in. Maybe we'll stop there. I'm going to kind of run my stir stick through just to create some swirls. And I wish I could show this to you a little bit better, but unfortunately, unless Joel takes his camera out of that tripod doohickey thing over there, I can't really pick this up and show it to you. Now we'll add some more of the red. Ooh, Joel, it is looking a little more red. I'll swirl it again. And I'm doing this very, very gently, trying to get it all the way to the ends. Ooh, even the drips coming off of the stick are kind of cool looking. Are you getting in here at all, Joel, or are you? Okay, cool, because this is kind of cool. Yeah, I know, folks, I get excited by the strangest things. What can I tell you? All right. Last little bit here. I didn't even end up making a big mess here, Joel. Oop, I spoke too soon. All right. Some last minute little swirls in there. What do you think, Joel?
It's beautiful.
Kind of psychedelic, huh? Mm-hmm. All right. So now, folks, we have this handy dandy little home built. I'm too high up and Joel's too close in. There we go. I have this handy dandy little rack that I built specifically for this purpose. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my mold, slide it onto the bottom shelf there, and then carefully pick it up, place it down into the pressure pot so it'll sit nice and level down there. We're going to put our lid on. And I got to tell you, folks, this pressure pot, I really like this thing. I did a casting last night before I left work. I ran it up to 40 psi. I unhooked the compressor from it and just left it all closed up at 40 psi. It was still holding well over 30 psi when I came into work this morning. So it holds pressure very well. The product that we're using today has a demold time of about 2 to 4 hours. So really, your pressure pot technically really only needs to hold pressure for that 2 to 4 hours. And probably not even that long, really. It's probably going to begin to harden to the point where it's not going to compress any further than what it already has, okay? So the fact that it held pressure overnight is really good to know, and I just really like this pressure pot. All right, so you can see I've got my bolts on really good and tight. Make sure that my drain valve is screwed shut, because otherwise it won't pressurize. We'll hook up to the valve here. And this is just a standard 1/4 inch fitting. And I charged up the air compressor beforehand, so I'm a little, there we go. Just having a little bit of trouble getting it to lock on there, because I didn't want that compressor to kick on during the video, because it's really loud. All right, so the bolts are good and tight. We've got our pressure hooked up. The drain valve is closed. So let's open our pressure pot. You can hear the air coming in. And we're going to run this up to 40 psi. Uh-oh. Is the compressor going to come on or not, Joel? What do you think? I think we need the compressor. Folks, pardon me for just a moment. We're going to make a little noise here. All right. So we're at 40 psi. I've closed the valve, the inlet valve. We'll take the compressor hose off because we don't need it anymore. And now we just need to let the pot sit. We just need to let this sit. We'll come in tomorrow, we'll open this up, we'll take that mold out, and we'll see what the blank looks like. So that one's in there cooking. Now the one I did last night in preparation for today's video, this was the blue and the diamond dust, metallic, just the two colors, okay? So this is our pin blank, 3.3 ounces of total resin for this. And you can see that the blank is just gonna pop right out, all right? So your mold is nice and clean, it's ready to use again, not a problem at all. The recommended cleaning method for this is denatured alcohol. That will keep it nice and clean. And again, the mold release agent will help to keep the interior of that mold conditioned and in ready to use state. So Joel, I don't know if you want to get, how close you want to get so that people can see how our blank from last night came out. But again, this is the sky blue that we used today, along with the white, they call it white? Diamond dust metallic resin powder, they call it. And you can see that the colors blended a little bit. We do have some swirling action going on, and I suspect that we're going to have, once we get this turned into a pen, I suspect this is going to be a very pretty pen. And I look forward to actually being able to turn this. I've turned Alumilite before. It's a very nice product to work with. And it's just a lot of fun to be able to make your own plastic pin blanks, bottle stopper blanks, handle blanks, whatever your imagination can come up with. So, folks, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. I know this was a long video, but there's a lot to cover. It's a lot of fun. Come in and see us here at Woodcraft, and we'd love to show you our products and get you started into resin casting. So thank you very much, and have a good evening.